Examining the greatest directorial debuts in film history, from Steven Spielberg to Jordan Peele. Sifting through the century-spanning catalog of first features and crowning the best of the best, a loose ranking including Citizen Kane and Blood Simple by Andrew Valianti. From the most celebrated auteur to the most obscure independent director, every industry member began as an inexperienced outsider chasing after a dream. Any creative mind who have ever left a mark on film had to fight through the seemingly insurmountable difficulties and innumerable doubts inherent in the process of crafting an inaugural feature. Nothing is assured to a first-time director other than that which they can find within themselves to carry their project over the finish line, and while many falter, a select few fly. With 4 of the last year's 8 Best Picture nominees coming from first-time directors, it's clear that yet another talented crop of young innovators has arrived hungry for the opportunity to tell new and unique stories. This article breaks down the very best directorial debuts from around the world, offering a loose ranking that spans the long history of film. Some basic criteria for the films listed are that the director must have gone to make at least one other feature, no one-and-doners like Charles Lauden's Night of the Hunter, the film must be at least 60 minutes long, no shorts like Charlie Chaplin's Caught in the Rain, 1914, and the film must have had only one credited director, no collaborations like Terry Gilliam and Terry Jones' Monty Python and the Holy Grail, 1975. Hiroshima, Mon Amour, Alain Resnais, 1959. The first of many French New Wave debuts on this list, Alain Resnais's hypnotic romantic tragedy Hiroshima Mon Amour, 1959, paints a delicate picture of a one-night relationship between traumatized French actress Elle, played by Manuel Riva, and smitten Japanese architect Louis, portrayed by Eiji Okada, as they wander the city of Hiroshima, still rebuilding from the decimation of the atomic bomb during the Second World War. Resnais had previously directed the harrowing documentary short Night and Fog, 1956, an unflinching depiction of the atrocities committed within the Nazi concentration camps, and with Hiroshima Mon Amour, the director cemented himself at the forefront of French filmmaking and a steadfast steward of activist filmmaking for decades to come. Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino.
Here are your names: Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Pink.
Why am I Mr. Pink?
Who cares what your name is?
Yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're Mr. White.
One of the most famous debuts in film history came in 1992 with the release of the then unknown Quentin Tarantino's blood-soaked heist thriller, Reservoir Dogs. Tarantino had been employed at the Video Archives rental store in Los Angeles and intended to make an ultra-low-budget home movie with his friends. The script he'd written for the project astonishingly found its way into the hands of actor Harvey Keitel, who liked it so much he decided to produce it. Tarantino used the new budget to cast underground talents like Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen, and Tim Roth in the film, matriculating into the stylishly edited and viciously penned classic of independent cinema that the film quickly grew into. After the release of Pulp Fiction 1994 shocked the world and turned millions of eyes onto Tarantino and his seemingly miraculous origins. Ivan's Childhood, Andrei Tarkovsky, 1962.
Сами же говорили, разведка самое главное. Сами же говорили, душа фронта, разведка.
It's admittingly hard to imagine legendary Russian filmmaker Andrei Tarkovsky as anything other than a grizzled master of his craft, but just like every other director, Tarkovsky had to start somewhere. Unlike most directors though, Tarkovsky started with an intensely gripping epic, combining the fog of war with the tragedy of innocence lost in Ivan's Childhood, 1962. The director of numerous masterpieces like Solaris, 1972, and Stalker, 1980, Tarkovsky's keen eye for stunning visuals and expert balance between head and heart were both present in this first feature. The story of a 12-year-old orphan Ivan who weasels his way into the role of a Soviet spy during World War II and rebels against 3 caring soldiers doing their best to take care of him on the front. Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig, 2017.
Lady Bird always says that she lives on the wrong side of the tracks, but I always thought that was like a metaphor. But there are actual train tracks.
Actress Greta Gerwig took the film world by storm with her brutally honest and touchingly tender offbeat coming-of-age drama Lady Bird, 2017. Starred director Noah Baumbach's Frances Ha, 2012, and Mistress America, 2015, Gerwig set off on her own to direct the largely autobiographical film about her own upbringing and high school experience in Sacramento, California. The film centers on the senior year of Saoirse Ronan's Lady Bird, McPherson and her struggles to find independence from her domineering mother, Marion, played by a career best Laurie Metcalf. Along with Ronan, the film starred actors like Beanie Fieldstein, Timothy Chalamet, Lucas Hedges, and Odeya Rush as eccentric friends and classmates of Lady Bird as she dreams of collegiate life on the West Coast. Routinely cited as one of the most important films of the decade, Gerwig more than held her own in the directing chair, injecting the film with a forlorn beauty most experienced directors routinely struggle to achieve. Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, Steven Soderbergh, 1989.
I've been watching you, I've been watching you, I watch you eat, I watch you speak.
While some of its legacy may be still tied up in its Palme d'Or win over Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing 1989, still far better than that film's Best Picture exclusion and the subsequent awarding of Driving Miss Daisy at the 1990 Oscar ceremony, Steven Soderbergh's entrancingly erotic and remarkably confident debut, Sex, Lies, and Videotape 1989, remains one of the most influential films of the decade and an essential harbinger of the independent film revolution of the 1990s. Soderbergh wrote the script across an 8-day road trip using yellow legal pads and managed to shoot the film over a month on a minuscule budget. Sex, Lies, and Videotape would prove an important stepping stone for many of its main cast, featuring Andie MacDowell in her first starring role as a sexually repressed Anne, Peter Gallagher as her adulterous lawyer husband, Laura San Giacomo as her extroverted sister, and a revelatory James Spader as Gallagher's old college friend who visits the couple and reveals his strange fetish to Anne, changing both their lives forever. American Beauty, Sam Mendes, 1999. Lauded British stage director Sam Mendes pulled off the nearly impossible with American Beauty, 1999, joining Delbert Mann, Jerome Robbins, Robert Redford, James L. Brooks, and Kevin Costner as the only directors to ever win the Best Director Oscar for their first feature film. Mendes' film blended an overwhelming somberness in tone with an acerbic wit in its screenplay, immediately gathering steam among audiences upon its release and winding up the 9th highest-grossing film of 1999. Kevin Spacey starred as the deeply depressed Lester Burnham, a dispassionate suburbanite father tumbling headfirst into a midlife crisis. The immense cast additionally consisted of Annette Bening as Lester's wife Carolyn, Thora Birch as his daughter Jane, Mena Savari as Jane's friend and Lester's object of obsession Angela, Wes Bentley as Jane's reclusive camera-clad boyfriend Ricky, and Chris Cooper as Ricky's tempestuous father Frank. The film was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, winning 5, including for Best Picture. Get Out, Jordan Peele, 2017.
Get out.
Sorry, man.
Get out! Yo!
It's possible no film from the last decade made a bigger cultural impact than Jordan Peele's instantly iconic mashup of social satire and spine-tingling horror, Get Out, 2017. Half of the famed comic duo, Key and Peele, alongside Keegan-Michael Key, Peele finally dared to venture outside of comedy with his multifaceted directorial debut, surprising both his loyal fans and general audiences with his complex rumination over the harsh realities of racism in America and kinetic directing style. Get Out served as Oscar winner Daniel Kaluuya's breakthrough performance amongst the movie-going public, his character Chris serving as the film's emotional anchor. Peele's film centers on Chris's girlfriend, Rose Armitage, played exceptionally by Allison Williams, bringing him on a trip upstate to meet her family, composed of Bradley Whitford as her pandering father, Catherine Keener as her eerie mother, and Caleb Landry Jones as her sadistic brother. The film truly lived up to the moment, shedding light on the fears of many millions of Americans while proving itself and its director as the latest evolutionary watermarks in contemporary storytelling. Blood Simple, Joel Cohen, 1984.
What I know about is Texas. Down here, you're on your own.
Very few debuts reflect on the tone and perspective of the director's ensuing filmography better than Joel Cohen's Texan neo-noir thriller Blood Simple, 1984. The latent wit of later endeavors like Raising Arizona and The Big Lebowski, the acidic heart of works like Fargo, 1996, and No Country for Old Men, 2007, and the profound dolefulness of films like Inside Llewyn Davis, 2013, and A Serious Man, 2009, are all perfectly bundled together with Cohen's first feature. Scripted by Cohen alongside brothers and later co-director Ethan, the film also served as an introductory screen appearance for 3-time Oscar winner Frances McDormand, as the wife of a seedy bar owner who begins an affair with one of his employees. Dan Haida portrayed her bottom-feeding husband, and John Getz played her doltish lover, the former setting in motion a murder plot to be carried out by an exceptionally evil M. Emmett Walsh. The film that follows is a masterclass in tension and a near-perfect start to the Coen brothers' unique career. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Mike Nichols, 1966.
Virginia Woolf, who's afraid of Virginia?
The chamber piece to end all chamber pieces, Mike Nichols' propulsive adaptation of Edward Abel's quintessential play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, 1966, is one of the best acted films of all time. Set in and around a late-night dinner party held at the house of the bitter aging couple George and Martha, attended by the sprightly Nick and Honey, the film expertly reformats the play from the stage to the silver screen. George, an exasperated college history professor, is locked in a loveless marriage with the daughter of his university president, Martha, who reveals that she invited the young couple over for drinks after a tiresome faculty get-together. The constantly agitated duo, portrayed with a jaw-dropping sincerity by Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, reflected the two actors' real-life on and off marriage and explosive reputation. The pair starred opposite relative newcomers George Siegel and Sandy Dennis, each holding their own against the dynamic force they shared the screen with, but the film ultimately rested upon the shoulders of Burton, Taylor, and its fresh-faced director. Duel, Steven Spielberg, 1971. It's hard to imagine life before Steven Spielberg. The award-winning director has redefined the childhood of multiple generations with his unique form of cinematic magic in films like Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, 1982, and Jurassic Park, 1993. Nonetheless, in 1971, Spielberg was little more than an ambitious startup episodic television director looking to break into the industry any way he could. His first shot at helming a feature film came with the planned production of Richard Matheson's short story Duel, 1971, for the ABC Movie of the Week program on the channel. Spielberg completely surpassed any and all expectations with his eventual product, far transcending the typical limitations of the TV movie format and assembling a near-perfect thrill ride through the Mojave Desert. Dennis Weaver starred as traveling businessman Travis Mann, who runs afoul of the deranged driver of a dilapidated tanker truck. The two become locked in a deadly vehicular duel that has endured as one of the most energetically filmed and blisteringly tense to ever be captured on film, paving the way for Spielberg to both invent and perfect the Hollywood blockbuster in the decades to come. Breathless, Jean-Luc Godard, 1960.
The nice guy, the naughty girl, the wise guy.
There's little left to be said about the now mythical Jean-Luc Godard's astonishingly influential debut feature, Breathless, 1960. The film did for the French New Wave what Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde, 1967, later did for the American chapter of the movement, establishing the distinct tone and spirit of the films to follow. A simple story told in an excitingly new fashion, the film follows the antics of the cigarette-smoking car thief Michael, attempting to tie up the loose ends in his life and convince his American girlfriend Patricia to run away to Italy with him after he kills a policeman. In a breakthrough performance, Jean-Paul Belmondo starred as Michael, creating an instantly iconic likeness somewhat modeled on the various film personas of Humphrey Bogart. The film's controversial subject matter got the film banned in many countries after its release, though international outrage was largely softened as its legacy grew outside the burgeoning French film industry. Godard said of the film and its seismic impact on the way films were made, there used to be just one way. There used to be people who protected it like a copyright, a secret call only for the initiated. That's why I don't regret making Breathless and blowing all that apart. In Bruges, Martin McDonagh, 2008.
Who did you murder for money, Raymond? You, Father.
Likely the least seen feature on this list, British writer-director Martin McDonagh's hilarious yet devastating debut in Bruges, 2008, is undoubtedly one of the most underappreciated films of the last 20 years. A pitch-black comedy, the film depicts a few days in the life of a dubious pair of hitmen forced to hide out in the city of Bruges, Belgium after a job goes south, featuring career-defining performances from Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson as the sympathetic assassin Ken and Ray, and hysterically unhinged turn from Ray Fiennes as their neurotic employer Harry. The film is one of the most poignant blends of side-splitting hilarity and soul-crushing melancholia in film history. While the performances are otherworldly across the board, the film's greatest asset is McDonagh's brilliant screenplay and decisive direction. The director would go on to much acclaim with his similarly dark comedy drama 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri in 2017. But despite that film's many strengths, it is dwarfed in comparison to McDonagh's truly peerless In Bruges. The 400 Blows, Francois Truffaut, 1959. The final film of the French New Wave to appear on this list, Francois Truffaut's deeply personal testament to the unspoken struggles of adolescence, The 400 Blows, 1959, may very well be the greatest film in France's history. Truffaut, who had enjoyed a budding career as a famously brutal film critic at the Cars du Cinema magazine, was inspired by a viewing of Orson Welles' Touch of Evil, 1958, at the 1958 Brussels World Fair to finally create his own film using the extensive knowledge on the form he had amassed during his time at Cars. The 400 Blows centers on the struggles of Antoine Durnal, a young boy on the verge of failing out of primary school and getting cast out by his callous parents. After getting in trouble with the police for his latest harebrained antics, the boy reaches a breaking point and succumbs to the mounting weight of the world on his shoulders. In large part autobiographical of Truffaut's own childhood, the film is a harshly honest snapshot of the underground pressures of being a kid in a world that requires you to grow up or flunk out. Citizen Kane, Orson Welles, 1941. No list of impressive screen debuts would be complete without the forefather of them all, Orson Welles' immortal Citizen Kane, 1941. The film has held a stalwart position as one of the best films, first feature or otherwise, of all time, growing to become synonymous with cinematic exceptionalism. Welles had become the most sought-after name in Hollywood following a legendary radio broadcast of H.G. Wells's The War of the Worlds, 1897, signaling a remarkably expensive exclusivity contract with RKO Pictures that would eventually lead to the formation of his first feature. Welles would serve as the film's director, producer, co-writer, though largely disputed by fellow co-writer Herman G. Mankiewicz, and star, finding his Herculean efforts rewarded by an overnight stardom and the label of the brightest young mind in Hollywood. The film served as a pseudo-biography of media baron William Randolph Hearst, in the film referred to as Charles Foster Kane. Kane's entire life is combed through after the news uncovers his final words before his death, Rosebud. Only select few films have reached the impenetrable status of Citizen Kane across the 80 years since its release, due in large part to his ever-relevant thesis on media sensationalism and the traumas of unfettered capitalism. While the film's substance remains one of its foremost assets, it is ultimately Welles himself and the larger-than-life legacy he has amassed during the span of his life. 12 Angry Men, Sidney Lumet, 1957.
Ever since you walked into this room, you've been acting like a self-appointed public avenger. Shut up. You're a sadist.
While there have been plenty of bona fide classics, new and old, on this list, none have come close to surpassing acclaimed filmmaker Sidney Lumet's eternally impactful masterpiece, 12 Angry Men, 1957. The gold standard for first-time directors, Lumet's film has enjoyed a similarly sustained relevance to Citizen Kane, only increasing in significance over time. The director, who had only had a few television production credits to his name, was handpicked by the film's producer and star Henry Fonda to helm the project. A pure and simple morality tale surrounding a jury's ultimate deliberation over the fate of an 18-year-old defendant accused of murdering his father. The film remains the greatest examination of truth and justice in film history, and an intensely layered dissection of guilt and innocence. Lumet handled the film better than any of his more experienced contemporaries, proving himself as a dedicated exponent of cinema as well as the most accomplished debut director in the history of film.